Shabbat Shalom, family. With Smith for Witnesses of Yahuwah, House of Restoration, Remnant House, here joining you on the Sabbath Day Gathering. And I just love it when we gather together because we come together and we learn from one another. And as we learn from one another, we can walk in love and we can walk in admiration of one another as Yahuwah have proclaimed for us to do. And so this week's teaching is called, y'all saw it on the thing, thou shalt have no other gods before me. So seeing that we've been talking about the Sabbath and going through all these different commandments, we're going to talk about having no other gods before YAHUAH ELOHYM, before YAHUSHA HaMashiach, because it's so important to recognize that we can fall susceptible to little things or traditions that we have come accustomed to in the old teachings that were passed down from one generation to the next. And so one thing that we have to take into account is that we are to only worship Yahuwah. Now, he sent his son, YAHUSHA HaMashiach. So his name is above all names. So we'll talk about how even you're not supposed to worship idols or graven images. So we're looking at the first two commandments, which is thou shalt have no other gods before me, and thou shalt make no graven images unto you to worship or bow down to. So let's talk about that a little bit, because we have to recognize that even when we call on the name of someone else or something else, then that's falling under worship. And so I'm just gonna bring it. I ain't gonna say nobody's name, but earlier this week we had a little correction that had to be given out because we heard somebody praying to someone another name, and it's understandable that we want our loved ones that does that type of worship to come up under the umbrella of knowing Yahuwah for themselves, knowing Yahushua HaMashiach for themselves. But we are to be the examples to them. We're not to follow their example and calling on whoever they're calling on. So the thing I love about it, though, is when the correction was brought forth to that person, they accepted the correction because they already knew within the spirit. That's why we have to test the spirit by the spirit. They knew within the spirit, by the spirit realm, that they felt like that wasn't right. And so by bringing it to their attention, that helps bring assurance that you're not to do that. So that's why we have to understand why Yahuwah brings this to our attention. Because if you go, those of you that had the SHEMOTH, you can actually go back into the book of Enoch in the book, because there are fragments of Noah in the book of Enoch. You can go into the book of Yasher and the book of Jubilees and different books where the fallen angels and the Nephilim taught the people to worship these images, to worship these fallen entities, to be their gods versus the true living Elohim. So we know the true living Elohim is YAHUAH ELOHAYKA. And so that the true living Elohim that sent his only begotten son, or his Yahid, his beloved son, right? That's the true living Elohim. So let's look in scripture real quick. Exodus chapter 20, verses 3. Exodus chapter 20, verses 3 through 6. Let's read what it said. It said, you shall have no other Elohim, lowercase, before me, no other God before me. Thou shalt not make unto you any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in the heavens above. So think about that. He's talking about not making angels, right? And so now let's recognize. I want y'all to recognize something, that even Satan still dwells in heavenly places. So we have to be careful that those images. And then let's think of another image in heaven that people worship: the moon. Another image is the sun. Another image is the stars. So a lot of people remember when Nebuchadnezzar had a dream and said that he called his astrologers and his scientists and his wizards and his magicians and different people, because they use the stars and the moon and the planets and different things to interpret. So one thing, remember we talked about this a couple weeks ago when we was talking about uh, different areas that we had to pay attention to, and that's even with following up on the horoscopes, right? So the horoscopes, they are like Sagittarius and Scorpio and Capricorn and all that different type of stuff. That type of stuff is false worship. I mean, so every time you go look at your horoscope, you're giving praise or worship unto a false god, a false elohiym, because it gives you a little paragraph of your day or of your month or of your year, right? So that's what you have to be careful with. You have to pay attention to those little things. It's small things in the detail that is left out. And it's just like when you sign a contract, they have those little bitty words that's hard for you to read. But if you don't pay attention to everything that's in that contract, you might get hooked, right? And so in tradition and in generations to past, we have been taught that it's okay to do this. So something that Catholicism do is they pray to Mary. Mary can't save you, right? They pray to Mary. They pray to Saint Raphael. They pray to Saint Francis. They pray to all these different, and they even pray to the Pope because they think that he's a stand-in. And certain churches act like bishops are stand-ins for Yahushua Mashiach. But I'll tell you this, he's the only high priest. That's the only name that you call on. You don't place nobody else in that place. And so when he said, know that there is anything, no likeness of anything, even in the heavens above. So, and then look at that, that is in the earth beneath. There are things in the earth, right? Yeah. You have even place where the fallen angels have been locked away. Okay, and then you also have the moles, you have rats, you have different things that tunnel in under the earth. So he said nothing. Basically, anything that he created, you're not to worship, or anything in the water. Now we know that Dagon, or whatever his name, he was a half fish, half man. So some of these Nephilim, right, that were here in the earth back when Noah was around, that was manipulated, DNA was manipulated. They begin to make images of this, right? They begin to make images of these things and they begin to worship them. And then they passed on from one generation to the next generation. So even after the flood, they still begin to worship these things, right? And so that's why we had to take time. And he said, study to show thyself approved. So as you study your word, as you get in your word, it says your word that cleanses you. And that's why when that person realized that when they did it instantly by the Ruach HaKodesh, it alarmed them. It began to be an alarm in their spirit. And so therefore, they recognized that this isn't what I should be doing. But when it was brought to their attention, it was confirmation that this isn't what you're supposed to be doing. So automatically, what happens after that? You go into a repentant state. And that's why we ought to be constantly in a repentant state, because we all error at times, and so we have to and remember what scripture says. It says do not be offended when you are chastened of the Lord, because he who he chastens and rebukes what he loves. And so whenever it's like I love a father whoops his son, or a mother whoops his son, or corrects them. And it don't necessarily have to be whoop, but it could be if you see them do something wrong, you to guide them back to the right path. Why is that? Because you know that there's going to come later circumstances in life that if they don't get it fixed now, then later on they will begin to still do that same thing. So that's why you have to train a child in the way that they should go. So when they grow old, they will not depart from the faith. They will not depart from this. And so as you teach them the word, as you reveal the word to them, guess what? It becomes a blanket in the cold. It becomes a cooler in the heat. It becomes water when you're thirsty. It becomes, when you become dirty, it becomes a bath. This is why we need this. I mean, and so look what else he said. You shall not bow down yourself to them nor serve them. understand, bowing down, when it's saying that, it's saying you shall not worship them, right? So when we go into prayer, what do we normally do? We bow down, we kneel down. So even if we're praying, even if we're standing naturally in the spirit, we're bowed down. So that's why we're not to call on another name. That's why we're not to worship these graven images. So even sometimes you have to pay attention to whether you got graven images on your phone, right? A graven image could be a nice looking woman. It could be, and what I mean by that is you give worship to that image of that person. You can have Saint Mary on your phone. You can have different, you know what I'm saying, people that you idolize. And so that's something else that we talk about, because people can become idols too. Think about these people when they get so fanatical on sports. Huh? Because what's happening with those people is they're idolizing the character that that person is portraying on TV. They're idolizing the athletic ability of those people. And so therefore, now let's look at it like this. When they sell posters to you, what are those posters? An idol. Because you're hanging images around in your room. Now, are you beginning to worship that person to the point where you know, listen, this is real. Because so many people know the name Jesus Christ, but don't have a relationship with him. And when I say Jesus Christ, I'm talking about YAHUSHA ELOHAYKA. But many people know about Jesus Christ because they won't go beyond the veil of searching for these things. And so therefore they stick to what's traditional and they stick with it. But this is the thing. Just because you know his name, I can tell you like this. Many people know Kobe Bryant, but do Kobe Bryant know them? They know his stats. They know how much he scored in the last game. And I'm talking about back in my day when Kobe Bryant was there. Michael Jordan was there. They knew these things about that person. But when that person met them, did he know them? So this goes down to let's look at it like this. Okay, you know him. You know his name. But when it comes time for you to go before him, when it comes time for every knee to bow and every tongue confess, will you be forced to do this? Or will you do it willingly out of submission because you know that he is already the King of Kings? Or will you find yourself susceptible to doing what the world does? Because remember this, greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. And so when we were talking about testing the spirits, right? We were talking about this and false teachers. Now we're looking at what? The false teachers lead you to worshiping false gods. And that's why he said you don't take the word of a prophet or the word of a dreamer and just go with what they say, because they will start leading you to false gods, right? And so that's why we have to know when we're in this thing, we have to be able to discern the spirits. Because other words, we can be misled. And listen, now, out of ignorance, Yah will forgive if you seek him on that. But if you just know, but you are seeking other things because you don't feel like Yah is moving quick enough, or you don't feel like it appertains to you, then you will be sadly mistaken, because this is the same thing that Yahudah, the house of Yahuwah's people, this is what they did. They mingled with the nations and they worship what the nations worship, but still put a form of worshiping Yah in with it. So they would do the feast days, but they wouldn't do it properly the way they were supposed to be done. They were doing it, but it was in vain. Remember what we read in Isaiah about when they were supposed to be keeping the Sabbath. But he said, who led you to this fast, right? Yeah. Who's accepting this fast, right? Because you're doing it in vain. You ain't doing it to me. And so we have to realize that we aren't to do, because if we do it that way, we're doing it in vain, because it's no good to Yah, because we're mingling false worship. And he said, we're going to read about this, because he said, you shall not bow down yourself to them nor serve them. This is verse 5. For I, YAHUAH ELOHAYKA, am a jealous El. And guess what? We don't have the right to be jealous about anything. But he has every right to be jealous. Why? Because he's the creator. He's the one that formed us when we were in the womb. He's the one that gave us speech. He's the one that gave us breath. So he has every right to be jealous. Okay, but we as human beings, we didn't create anything. Yeah, we created these images that he's talking about, but that makes him jealous. And therefore we have no right to be jealous with our brother or with our sister. Why? Because he created them. And so whatever they have, and listen, all his commandments link in one to another, because when you commit idolatry, you're ultimately committing adultery, because remember, you're betrothed to him, right? You're in a covenant with him. So being in that covenant, right, places you in a position of being betrothed to the point where a marriage will happen eventually. And when that marriage happens, if you're already sleeping around and doing this and that, what man or what woman wants to keep that other person around if they're already doing that before the marriage? So then this is where it comes: depart from me, ye worker of iniquity, for I never knew you. How many times have you been with somebody and they did something that just was not what you were expecting, and you be like, my goodness, as long as we've been together, I never really knew you. Huh? Think about that. Think about that. So now, as we look at what Yahuwah is saying, he said, I'm a judge. He said, I will visit the iniquity of the fathers upon the children. So if you're passing this down to your children, or you're doing it, and then he gonna visit it on your children until the third and fourth generation of them that hate me. Listen, he said, if you begin to do this, you hate me. You hate me. You because why? You're serving something other than me. You're serving something that I created. Listen, a tree he created. That tree has to be cut down. It has to be carved. All these different things have to be done to it. Right? But look what he said. He said, and he'll show mercy unto the thousands of them that love me and do what? Guard my commandments. Do y'all realize that each and every one of you are guardians? What are you guardians of? You're guardians of keeping his word pure. You're guardians of keeping his commandments to those that don't know him. Right? Those that are still walking in sin. You're the guardian of that. You're to keep that and protect it as if somebody's trying to constantly take this away from you. You're to be its protector. Because there are people constantly trying to take it from you. It's people of the world, people of the nations that live according to their own desires. And when I say nations, I mean the Gentiles, the Goyim, those that does not know Yah, those that walk in their own lustful sins. When you begin to do a study on a Goyim or a Goyim, you understand when it talk about the Gentile, right? Even his covenant people could be a Gentile if they separated themselves from Yah, because that's what a Gentile is. Someone that does not know Yah and does not walk in his truth, his statutes, his ways. And so as we walk in his ways, we have to be careful. So now let's look at this, because even we hear from the prophet. He spoke it through the prophet that this would happen. Look at Isaiah. Isaiah chapter 44. And I'm going to go verses 9 through 20. Isaiah 44, verses 9 through 20. Look what it say. They that make graven images are all of them, listen, vanity, and their delectable things shall not profit. And they are their own witnesses. Listen to that. Remember, your flesh will be a witness against you one day if you walk in the desires of lusting of the flesh. So it said, and they are their own witnesses. They see not nor know, that they may be ashamed. Who has formed an El, or a lowercase God, or molten a graven image that is profitable for nothing? Do y'all remember back when Moshe was up on the mountain and he was getting the commandments? And then what happened? Aaron yells that tomorrow's a feast of Yahuwah. They decide they want a party, and they have Aaron make a graven image of a calf. Right? Yep. But look what it said in verse 11. Behold, all the fellows shall be ashamed. Wasn't they ashamed when Moses came down there? He stuck that thing to dust and made them drink it mingled with the water. Yep. Had a bitter taste. So look what it said. It said, behold, all his fellows shall be ashamed, and the workmen, they are of men. Of them all be gathered together. Let them stand up, yet they shall fear, and they shall be ashamed together. The smith with the tongue both works in the coals. Now, he talk about a man creating this thing. Yeah. And he's also talking about those lowercase L's being ashamed when that day, because listen, those images were created after something. Yes. Right? When you hear Molech in his image, it was created after a fallen watcher. Yeah. You hear about Asherah. Right. Remember he told him to tear down the Asherah pole. Yeah. This was being done for a reason. That's right. Come on. It was being done for a reason because way back before the flood, these things begin to inhabit the earth, and they wanted to be Yah on earth. That's right. That's why Yahuwah sent his beloved son to walk amongst us, because Yah was in the flesh to prove that he would outdo what these entities were trying to do. They were trying to create in their own image, but he brought forth Adam, which was in his own image, right? Yeah. But then Adam failed, so he brought forth what? The second Adam. Yeah. Which is YAHUSHA HaMashiach. Yeah. Now look at that. So look. It said the carpenter stretches out his rule, so he's measuring this thing, right? Yeah. And he marks it out with a line. He fits it with planes, and he marks it out with the compass. He's designing it. Look at that. And he makes it out of the figure of a man, according to the beauty of a man, that it may remain in the house. He hews him down with cedars and takes the cypress and the oak, which he strengthens for himself among the trees of the forest. He plants an ash, and the rain nourishes it. Then shall it be for a man to burn, for he will take thereof and warm himself. Yea, he kindles it and bakes bread. Yea, he makes an ale and worships it. He makes it a graven image and falls down thereto. He said that he falls down there to worship it now. So look what else happening here. So he said he burns part thereof in the fire, with part thereof he eats flesh. He roasts and is satisfied. Yea, he warms himself and says, aha, I am warm, and I have seen the fire. And the remnant thereof he makes an ale. Even his graven image, he falls down unto it, and he worship it and prays unto it, and says, deliver me, for you are my ale. Then it said, they have not known nor understood, for he has shut their eyes. Listen to that. And they cannot see, and their hearts that they cannot understand. They have been given over to a reprobate mind. Come on. They have been given over to a reprobate mind because they believed a strong delusion, and he gave them over to that strong delusion. Man. Look what it said. They have not known nor understood, for he has shut their eyes, and they cannot see, in their hearts that they cannot understand. Their hearts that they cannot understand. They don't even recognize what's going on with them. They have fallen susceptible, right? Yeah. So look what else it said. And none considers in his heart, neither is there knowledge nor understanding to say, I have burned part of it in the fire. Yea, listen to what he's saying. This thing is being consumed by fire, and yet you still worship it. Remember this, Yahuwah is what? A consuming fire. And so therefore, when he comes forth, other things gets consumed around him. So look at that. And he said, I also have baked bread unto the coals thereof. I have roasted flesh and eaten it, and shall make the remnant thereof an abomination. He gonna make the people that's supposed to be following Yah an abomination. Shall I fall down to the stock of the tree? He feeds on ashes. Listen, a deceived heart has turned him aside, that he cannot deliver his soul, nor say, is there not a lie? Listen to this, a lie in my right hand. That image, remember, the right hand represents power. Yeah. So he's carrying that image in his right hand. He thinks that it has power. Mm-hmm. So he says they're not, right now what he's telling them is they're carrying around a lie. Yeah. And now their heart has been deceived, and they cannot get back to that place where they need to be. Why? Because when you're giving over to a reprobate mind, you're giving over to that delusion. Yeah. You're giving over to that falsehood of thinking that, man, this is real. So you begin to believe that a lie is the truth. And so this is why we were talking about last week, the false shepherd, being careful, knowing how to discern them, because it said that they will bring forth teachers with seducing spirit, with teachers having itchy ears. And so as you begin to learn and follow under that, then you'll begin to believe the lie more than the truth. And if that happens, you're going to eventually fall away. So let's look what another prophet talking about here. And Jeremiah chapter 10. Jeremiah chapter 10, verses 1 through 10. It say, hear ye the word which Yahuwah speaks unto you, O house of Yasharel. Thus says Yahuwah, learn not the way of the heathen. That means learn not the way of those that are not of Yah. Learn not the way of those that walk in the ways of the world. It said, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven. Remember, we talked about make no graven images of anything in the heavens above. So it said, be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them. They look at the signs, and they, instead of them looking at it as preparing, they look at it as a curse or something. You see what I'm saying? And they begin to worship those things. So look what it said. For the customs of the people are vain. Here we go. We hear that again. Vain, meaning it's of no good. It's of no use. So it said, for one cuts a tree out of the forest, the work of the hands of a workman with the axe. They deck it with silver and with gold. They fashion it with nails and with hammers, that it move not. Now listen to this. This could represent a Christmas tree, but it could also represent the carving of an image of a wooden idol, right? So look what it said. They are upright as the palm tree, but speak not. They must needs be born, because they cannot go. Be not afraid of them, for they cannot do evil. Neither also is it in them to do good. So they can't do neither, because it's just a wooden image. Wow. Yeah. It's just a wooden image that sits there. Yeah. And so therefore it can't bring forth fortune. It can't bring forth anything. But if you begin to call on that as your heir, then he'll give you over to it. And then you will believe that these things are doing something. I remember, I think it was one of the presidents walked around with like a little monkey figure in their pocket, and they worship that thing, right? And so look what it's saying here. Be not afraid of them, for they cannot do evil, neither is it in them to do good. For as much as there is none like unto you, O Yahuwah, listen to this. You are great, and your name is great in might. Your name is great in might. I want y'all to remember that. His name is great in might. That's the name that we call on. That's the only name that we call on. There's no other name in heaven and earth or below the earth that is above the name of YAHUSHA. I mean, so look at this. It says, who would not fear you, O King of nations? For to you does it appertain, for as much as among all the wise men of the nations and all their kingdoms there is none like unto you. But they are altogether brutish and foolish. Remember, we talked about that in Jude last week. He said they are like brute beasts, not having an understanding of this thing. But look what it said. Look what it said. It says, but they altogether are brutish and foolish, and the tree is a doctrine. Listen to this. The tree is a doctrine of vanities. Silver spread into the plates is brought up from Tarshish, and gold from Uphaz, the work of the workmen, and of the hands of the founder. Blue and purple is their clothing. They are all the work of cunning men. But you, Yahuwah, listen to that, is the Elohiym of truth. He is the living Elohim and the everlasting King. At his wrath, the earth shall tremble, and the nations shall not be able to abide. Of kings.
That's right.
Look at that. Look at that. Let's look at another one. Ezekiel. Ezekiel was warned about this. Ezekiel chapter 8, verses 1 through 17. These are the elders. These are supposed to be the ones keeping the people lying in line, the ones keeping the people prayed up, the ones leading the people properly. But look what it said. Look what it said. It says, and it came to pass in the 6th year and the 6th month and the 5th day of the month, as I sat in my house, and the elders of YAHUDA sat before me, that the hand of Adonai YAHUAH fell there upon me. Then I beheld, and lo, a likeness as the appearance of fire. Remember, we just talked about that. The other images are doing what? Burning in the fire, right? But YAHUAH is like a burning fire. His appearance is as a fire. From the appearance of his loins, even downward fire, and from his loins, even upward, as the appearance of brightness, as the color of amber. And he put forth the form of a hand and took me by the lock of my head. And the Ruach lifted me up between the earth and the heavens and brought me in the visions of Elohim to Yerushalayim, to the door of the inner gate that looks toward the north, where was the seat of the image of jealousy, which provokes to jealousy. And behold, the glory of Elohai, of Yasharel, was there, and according to the vision that I saw in the plain. Then said he unto me, Son of Adam, lift up your eyes. Now the way toward the north. So I lifted up my eyes the way toward the north, and behold, northward at the gate of the altar, this image of jealousy in the entry. Listen to that. It was an idol there at the entry of the gate. He said, furthermore unto me, Son of Adam, see you what they do, even the great abominations that the house of Yasharel commits here, that I should go far off from my sanctuary, but turn yet again, and you shall see greater abomination. And he brought me, listen to that, he brought me to the door of the court, and when I looked, behold, a hole in the wall. Then he said unto me, Son of Adam, dig now in the wall. And when I dig now in the wall, and when I had dug in the wall, behold, a door. And he said unto me, go in and behold the wicked abominations that they do here. So I went in and saw, and behold, every form of creeping thing, and abominable beast, and all the idols of the house of Yasharel portrayed upon the wall round about. They had portraits up on the wall of creeping things, of beasts. Remember, he warned, we just read about it. You don't have stuff like that. And not only that, there were probably little wooden carvings, little stone carvings. But look what he said. And he said unto me, go in and behold the wicked abomination that they do here. So I went in and saw, behold, every form of creeping thing and abominable beast, and all the idols of the house of Yasharel portrayed upon the wall round about. And there stood before them 70 men. 70 men of the ancients of the house of Yasharel, and in the midst of them stood Yahu, the son of Shaphan, with every man in his censer in his hand, and a thick cloud of incense went up. Now this supposed to be the high priest. This supposed to be the high priest, and he's sitting there with the incense in their hand, like they in the house of Yahuwah in the temple, supposed to be worshiping, but have all these false images there. Well, look what it said. Then said he unto me, Son of Adam, have you seen what the ancients of the house of Yasharel do in the dark? They trying to hide in secrecy. Every man in the chambers of his imagery. Listen to that. For they say Yahuwah sees not. Yahuwah sees not. Yahuwah has forsaken the earth. And you still have people that think that to this day.
That's right.
They think that he has forsaken the earth. They think that he ain't gonna keep good on his promise. But I want to recognize something. While everybody yelling that judgment coming and this and that, you best recognize that he's gonna judge his house first.
That's right.
And that's what's happening here. He's judging his house before he even do anything else to any other in the land and nations. He gonna judge his house first. So it ain't together. Guess what? judgment will reign upon it. Now, we always talking about we want judgment, we want revival, we want this, we want that. But in order for revival to come, guess what? Everything has to be brought into to your remembrance. Everything has to be brought back. And so therefore things have to be restored. And as it be restored, guess what? That false, having that false stuff all up in here, you ain't gonna be able to do that. He don't want that. He want it to be a pure worship. Well, we'll just have him in our heart. Not everything else. Not everybody else. Look at that. So it said, he said unto me, turn yet again, and you shall see a great abomination that they do. Then he brought me to the door of the gate of Yahuwah's house, which was toward the north, and behold, there sat women weeping for Tammuz. Now, I did a teaching on Tammuz. Tammuz, Nimrod, and Asherah, or Semiramis. Tammuz is supposed to be, now that's what is supposed to be the Trinity. That's what's supposed to be. Semiramis is supposed to be like Mary, right? Nimrod's supposed to be like the Father, and then Tammuz is supposed to be like the Son. And then you have Saturn, Venus, and I think it's Mars. Yeah. These are all the false images that are being portrayed here. He said they're weeping for Tammuz. Then said he unto me, have you seen this, O son of Adam, turn yet again, and you shall see greater abominations than these. And he brought me into the inner court of Yahuwah's house, and behold, at the door of the temple of Yahuwah, between the porch and the altar, were about 25 men with their backs toward the temple of Yahuwah and their faces toward the east, and they worshiped the sun toward the east. They were worshiping an image in heaven, which he warned us not to do. Look what he said. Then he said unto me, have you seen this, O son of Adam? Is it a light thing to the house of Yahuwah that they commit the abominations which they commit here? For they have filled the land with violence and have returned to provoke me to anger. And lo, they put the branch, listen to that, the branch, the Nazarim. Remember, we looked at the branch and we talked about the branch a couple weeks ago. The branch is the Nazarim, the Nazar, the guardian, the protector. Do it deeper in that study. Remember, he said that out of the root of Jesse will come what? A branch. Who's the branch? YAHUSHA. YAHUSHA HaMashiach. And then every branch that comes not to bear fruit, he does what? He hew it down and cast it into the fire. But they took the branch and they did what? Put it to their noses. Right? That's what he said. They put it to their noses. This is why we have to watch out. Look at verse 18. Therefore will I also deal in my fury. My eyes shall not spare, neither will I have pity. And though they cry in my ears with a loud voice, y'all hear that? Though they cry in my ears with a loud voice, yet will I not hear them. They have already been given over to something else. So let's talk about that name, because there's no other name, remember?
That's right.
In heaven or on earth. Let's look at Acts chapter 2, verse 33. Acts chapter 2, verse 33. Well, first look at 21. 21. And it shall come to pass, Acts chapter 2, verse 21. And it shall come to pass that whosoever shall call on the name of Yahuwah or Yahusha shall be saved. Y'all see that? You can't call on another name and get saved.
That's right.
You have to go before the King himself, Yahushua HaMashiach. And then look at verse 33. Therefore, being by the right hand of Yah exalted, and having received of the Father the promise of the Ruach HaKodesh, he has shed forth this which ye see now and hear. For David is not ascended to the heavens, but he said himself, Yahuwah said unto my Adonai, sit on my right hand until I make your foes my footstool. Therefore, let all the house of Yasharel know assuredly that Yahuwah has made the same Yahusha whom ye have crucified, both Yahuwah and Mashiach. See that? Yeah. Yahusha is Yahuwah in the flesh, right? And so as we see this, we know that that name itself is what? above all names. Go to Philippians real quick. Philippians chapter 2. Philippians chapter 2, and I'm going to start from verse 1. Let's look what it says. If there be therefore any consolation in Mashiach, if any comfort of love, if any fellowship of the Ruach, if any affection and mercy, fulfill my joy, that ye be like-minded, having the same love, being of what? One accord, one mind, being YAHUAH. Let nothing be done through strife or vain glory, but in lowliness of mind, let each esteem other better than themselves. Look not every man on his own things, right? Look not every man on his own things, but every man also on the things of others. Look what he's saying here. Let this mind be in you, which was also in Mashiach Yahusha. It said, who being in the form of Yah, thought it not robbery to be equal with Yahuwah, but made himself of no reputation, and took upon himself the form of a servant, and was made in the likeness of men. Y'all see that? And being found in fashion as man, he humbled himself and became obedient unto death, even the death of the cross. Even the death of the cross. Wherefore Yahuwah also has highly exalted him and given him a name which is above every name.
Hallelujah.
Listen to that. That at the name of Yahusha, at the name of Yahusha, every knee should bow, and of things in heaven, right? And things in earth. These are the things that they are creating, right? So everything's gonna bow. Things in heaven, things in earth, and things under the earth. And that every tongue should do what? Confess that Yahuwah, y'all hear that? That Yahuwah is Yahusha HaMashiach, to the glory of Yah the Father. Wherefore, beloved, as ye have always obeyed, not as in my presence only, but now much more in my absence, work out your own, listen to that, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. You need to be seeking the Father on these matters. When others present to you another name, when others present to you a false elohiym, you need to be petitioning the Father and praying for that person, that they come to the knowledge of who Yahuwah, Yahusha HaMashiach truly is. Let's look at one more scripture. One more scripture, because Paul stumbled on something at Mars Hill in Greece, where they had all these different images that they were worshiping, and they were basically worshiping devils. He said it, right? And upon that happening, he had to give some straightening it out, right? So let's look at Acts chapter 17, verses 22. Verses 22. Start from verse 32, and we'll work our way on down. So look what he said. Then Paul stood in the midst of Mars Hill and said, ye men of Athens, I perceive that in all things ye engage in the worship of devils. For as I passed by and held your devotions, I found an altar with the inscription to the unknown elohiym, whom therefore ye ignorantly worship him. You ignorantly worship him, I declare unto you. So he's declaring Yahuwah, because he said they got an inscription on there to the unknown elohiym. So they got all these other guys that they claim to know, you know, Adonis and Zeus, Hercules and Ares and all these Hera, all these gods, right? But you got on one of them the inscription, the unknown elohiym. So I'm gonna declare him to you. I'm gonna let you know who he truly is, and I'm gonna let you know what's coming if you don't turn from your wicked ways. So look what he said. So he said, Elohim that made the world and all things therein, seeing that he is Yah of heaven and earth, dwells not in temples made with hands, right? Neither is worship with men's hands as though he needed anything, seeing he gives to all life. So he kind of schooling them on who Yahuwah is, and schooling them on his omnipresence, his omnipotence, right? So, and his omniscience. So look what he's saying here. and has made of one blood all nations of men for to dwell on the face of the earth, and has determined the times before appointed and the bounds of their habitation, that they should seek Yahuwah if haply they might fear after him and find him, though he be not far from every one of us. Y'all hear that? He be not far from everyone. For in him we live and move and have our being, as certain also your own poets have said. Now he's talking about Socrates and all these different Homer, all these different poets and the ones that wrote the Odyssey and all those different things. He bringing that up. He said, because listen, Paul was he was wise in a lot of different languages, and he knew a lot of different cultures, right? So he knew about the Greek culture. That was one of, because remember, what was the three inscriptions placed on Yahusha's tree, on his grave? It was Hebrew, Greek, and Latin. So he knew those languages, right? Because he also told them one day I will go to Spain. Spain taught Latin. Rome taught Latin. But he told them on one, I will speak to you in the Hebrew tongue.
That's right.
Huh?
Wow.
So look at this. It said, for as much then as they are the offspring of Yahuwah, he ought not to think that Yah is like unto gold or silver or stone, graven by art and man's device. And the times of ignorance, listen to this, Yahuwah winked at, he overlooked it.
Yeah.
But now commands all men everywhere to do what? Repent. So look at that. Because he has appointed a day in the which he will judge the world in righteousness by the man whom he has ordained, whereof he has given assurance unto all men, and that he has raised them from the dead. And when they heard of the resurrection of the dead, some mocked and others said, we will hear you again on this matter. So he began to almost change the minds of some of the people. So this is what we have to recognize, that before y'all winked at these things because it was of ignorance, but now that the gospel is being preached and to all nations, right? We had to watch ourselves, and we had to be wise on how we deal with these matters. All right. So as we come to a close, because the train just came into the station, we're gonna give a praise offering to Yahuwah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Listen to that. Praise is in the name. Hallel Yahuwah. Hallel Yahuwah. Hallel Yahuwah. Amen. So that means all praise goes to our Messiah, our Hamashiach, Yahuwah, Yahusha Hamashiach. So we give praise to him. We give all honor to him. And we thank him for just allowing us to be able to come together in these studies. Amen. And as we come to a close, I just ask that everyone keeps each other in prayer. Let's say a prayer real quick. Our Father, we ask that you watch over each and every one of our minds, Abba, as these things come to our understanding. Help us to gain a better understanding on why we are to only call on your name, why we are to only serve you, because it was there given to us in scripture to have no other gods before me, or have no other gods before you, O Yahuwah. So we thank you for your son, Yahusha HaMashiach, coming and being the resurrection, the redeemer of the dead, oh Yah, because all we were once walking dead. But now, since he is the first fruits, we can be gathered amongst with him. So we thank you for just allowing us to help our minds to be clear and give us a renewing of the mind and renewing of the spirit, oh Yah. We glorify that name and we lift you up in your son, Yahusha's name. Amen. Amen. So as we come to a close, I just ask that we keep each other in prayer. We watch over watch over each other. I mean, pray for one another. I mean, and I love you. Yahuwah loves you. Don't forget to say thank you, Yahusha. Talk to y'all soon.